Look closely at this map. Type this exact location into your GPS, and it'll look like any other spot in rural America. But drive there, and you won't find a single human being. No gas stations, no grocery stores, not even a post office. This is Picher, Oklahoma, a modern-day American ghost town. It wasn't abandoned because the economy crashed. It was abandoned because it became the most toxic, dangerous piece of land in the entire country. Some people call it America's Chernobyl. For decades, the people here were being poisoned by giant mountains of toxic waste sitting right outside their bedrooms. 60% of the kids who grew up here suffered irreversible brain damage. The creeks ran a bright, neon orange. And just as the government realized the whole town was sitting on a hollow, collapsing crust, the sky decided it was tired of waiting. On May 10th, 2008, a monstrous EF4 tornado slammed directly into the town. And as it tore through, it sucked up millions of tons of toxic dust, turning itself into a swirling, weaponized blender of poison. It was the day a town was killed twice. First by human greed, then by the sky itself. How does a thriving American city vanish off the map? And why did the government try to scrub it from history? Buckle in, this one gets dark. Part 1. The billion-dollar poison pill. At the turn of the 20th century, America was industrializing fast. We needed steel, cars, and ammunition, and the richest lead and zinc deposit on the planet happened to sit beneath a quiet stretch of northeastern Oklahoma. There was one problem. The land belonged to the Quapaw Native American tribe, and they said no to the mining companies. So the federal government simply declared the Quapaw landowners legally incompetent, seized management of their property, and signed the mining leases on their behalf. The gold rush was on, sealed by a bureaucratic pen. By 1918, Picher was born, exploding almost overnight into a boomtown of over 14,000 people. During both World Wars, it supplied over 60% of all the lead and zinc the U.S. military used for bullets and artillery shells. Money poured in, but the mining companies cut corners to maximize profit. Living in America's Chernobyl. For the next 20 years, the poison quietly marinated the town. With no regulations forcing a cleanup, every gust of wind sent a fine white dust of heavy metals drifting into kitchens, bedrooms, and classrooms. Every rainfall washed more of it into the water supply. By the 1980s, Tar Creek, the waterway running through town, turned a bright, toxic orange. Flooded mine shafts deep underground had reacted with leftover iron sulfide, creating an acidic chemical soup that bubbled to the surface and killed everything it touched. When the EPA finally tested the town, the results were a horror story. More than 60% of Picher's children tested positive for severe lead poisoning, suffering permanent brain damage, IQ loss, learning disabilities, and chronic aggression. Cancer and autoimmune rates ran over 30% above the national average. In 1983, Tar Creek was officially designated an EPA Superfund site, reserved for the most hazardous contamination zones in the country. But the cleanup never came close to matching the scale of the damage. Then, in 2006, the Army Corps of Engineers dropped a new bombshell. Decades of reckless underground excavation, without adequate support pillars, meant 86% of the town's structures, including the school and church, were sitting on a hollow, fracturing crust. Sinkholes were swallowing backyards and machinery overnight. Picher wasn't just poison anymore. It was collapsing. The government accepted there was no fixing it and launched a mandatory buyout program to empty the town. By early 2008, Picher was already packing its bags, slowly. The sky, however, was moving much faster. The day the sky broke, May 10th, 2008 started as an ordinary Saturday. Nobody knew the atmosphere above them was building toward catastrophe. A powerful jet stream and a Gulf-fed surge of humid air collided over the southern plains, trapped beneath a cap of hot, dry desert air. Like a lid on a pressure cooker, building explosive instability instead of releasing it in small storms. The Storm Prediction Center issued a high-risk warning that morning. Conditions were primed for violent, long-track tornadoes. At 4 p.m., the lid blew. A supercell exploded upward in southeastern Kansas, its updraft roaring skyward at over 100 miles per hour, organizing into a rotating mesocyclone. Massive hail began battering the ground, and the storm's downdraft spread into violent straight-line winds. At 5:20 p.m., just south of the Oklahoma-Kansas border, the funnel touched down. It intensified almost instantly, snapping trees, crossing the Neosho River, and destroying a cluster of mobile homes before tracking straight toward the Tar Creek Superfund site. As it reached the edge of town, the tornado tore directly into a multi-million-ton chat pile near Carden. The natural disaster became something else entirely. The storm sucked up thousands of tons of sharp, lead-laced mining waste, turning itself into a literal toxic blender. It tore into northern Picher between Tar Creek and Arnold Park. Manufactured homes were shredded into clouds of debris. More chat piles were struck along the way, adding even more lethal material to the vortex. Solid, wooden-framed houses were ripped from their foundations and torn apart midair. Families sheltering in closets and bathrooms found themselves suddenly exposed to open sky, clinging to plumbing pipes as their homes vanished above them. Survivors described the air being ripped from their lungs, replaced by the stench of ruptured gas lines and pulverized soil, wind strong enough to strip clothing and blast bare skin with toxic dust. In under 60 seconds, 6 people in Picher were killed, over 150 injured, and 232 homes destroyed. The rogue monster. But the storm wasn't finished. Maintaining its momentum, it crossed into Missouri, briefly weakened, then absorbed a smaller secondary storm cell, spinning up a second tornado and roaring back to full EF4 strength as it crossed Interstate 44. Along Iris Road near Racine, Missouri, well-built homes were flattened and scattered for miles across farmland. At the intersection with State Route 43, 21-year-old volunteer firefighter Tyler Casey spotted a stranded motorist and 2 unaware residents directly in the tornado's path. Instead of fleeing, he ran toward them, screaming a warning that gave them time to escape. He didn't make it back to his own vehicle in time and was killed in the line of duty. The tornado then struck a line of Saturday evening highway traffic, lifting fully loaded semi-trucks like toys and throwing some motorists hundreds of yards from the road. Between the Missouri border and Racine, it claimed 14 lives and injured nearly 200 more. It crossed Interstate 49, clipped the edge of Neosho, then shifted southeast, sparing downtown Granby, but slamming directly into the historic town of Newtonia, flattening buildings and barns. Even as it began to weaken, the storm lifted a mobile home off its pad near Purdy, killing the person sheltering inside. Finally, after carving a 76-mile path of destruction across 2 states, the tornado roped out and dissolved near McDowell, Missouri. The erasure of Picher. As rescue crews and the National Guard moved in, they noted a grim pattern. Most fatalities involved vehicles or mobile homes, a brutal reminder of how little protection either offers against a violent tornado. In total, the outbreak of May 10, 2008 killed 21 people, injured over 350, and caused hundreds of millions of dollars in damage. But in Picher, the disaster delivered a final, fatal blow. EPA engineers surveying the wreckage found the tornado had stirred up the chat piles and spread fresh, lead-laced dust evenly across the ruined town. The very air survivors were breathing while searching for family photos was now a biohazard. Rebuilding was no longer just impractical. It was impossible. The storm forced the federal government to accelerate the town's mandatory buyout. No infrastructure would be rebuilt. No power or water lines repaired. Checks were cut, and residents were told to leave. On September 1st, 2009, Picher officially dissolved its local government. The town was disincorporated. Its zip code was deleted. Picher, Oklahoma, was no more, left behind as a poisoned, scarred monument to both industrial exploitation and natural catastrophe. In a striking turn of historical justice, it was the Quapaw tribe, the same people whose land had been stripped and poisoned a century earlier, who stepped forward to lead the cleanup. With EPA backing, the The Quapaw have moved over 3 million tons of toxic chat back into the abandoned mines, slowly healing the wounds in the earth. In 2019, the EPA updated and expedited the Tar Creek cleanup plan, which is still actively underway today. Drive through Picher now, and you'll find a true ghost town. Nearly every home, school, and church has been demolished and cleared. Wild grass and overgrowth are slowly reclaiming the cracked foundations and empty streets. The story of Picher will be remembered as one of the great tragedies of American industrial history. A century of reshaping the planet, while assuming our engineering would always protect us from the consequences. May 10th, 2008 proved otherwise. We don't own the sky, and we haven't tamed the earth. Storms find our weak points, exploiting every flaw in our planning and every oversight in our engineering. We measure power in wealth and technology. But a single supercell, born from nothing more than heat, moisture, and wind, can unleash more raw energy in an afternoon than our greatest engines generate in a year. It's a power that cannot be negotiated with, cannot be appeased, and cannot be stopped. Our only real defense is to respect it, to listen to the warnings, and to remember we are not the masters of this world. We are merely its temporary occupants. Until next time, cherish the quiet days, take care of each other, and stay safe out there when the weather turns.